One thing I realized is I didn't want to stay there. I noticed at that time that I need to find mentors. I need to always be exposed to people. So I started looking for mentors. I started listening to Eric Thomas, Les Brown, going on YouTube University, listening to podcasts. So it was a evolving process for me, you know, where I got a chance to meet a lot of people, listening to them, find the one that I'm connecting with. And if they're able to show me something that they've done that I haven't done before, I was listening.
Welcome to an episode of the Work and Play Podcast. I'm your host, Ariel Young, and I have a really dope guest today. Listen, we are in store for a lot, because when I say the Work and Play Podcast is for folks who are looking to find out who they are, self-discovery, transition into the career that they want to do. This man has done it all. And so without further ado, would you please introduce yourself?
Hello everyone, Julbert Abraham, owner of HEM, also known as the LinkedIn Guy. I own a company that work with companies all over the world, 600 plus companies, and we've helped them leverage LinkedIn to grow their business.
The biggest thing that we talked about when we first had a conversation, you came from Haiti to be the man that you are today.
Yes.
So what was that journey like?
That's a good question. It was amazing. It was a lot of learning. And I can say, I'll share a bit more about my story, right? So 23 years, this July, I came from Haiti with my family. None of us spoke English. We flew in to JFK airport, right? And we were trying to figure our way around because we wanted to go to JFK and then from JFK, go to Canada to see family and then come back to the US. So none of us understand anything, but we let's go for it, right? And we started walking down JFK when we landed, trying to figure out our way. And the guy at custom was like, why you guys are here? And they said that several times. And for some reason, I'm like, well, if he's saying something, he must be asking us why we're here. So I told him vacation. And he was like, oh, vacation. I'm like, yes. And so at that point, I'm like, okay, we need to figure out how to speak English because that's going to be a very hard journey for us. So we kept going, trying to figure out our way, and we met a gentleman who happened to speak English and also Haitian Creole. He guided us to the airport and took us to our flight to Canada. So we flew to Canada, spent time with family, then we drove back from Canada to the US, and we spent time with more family, and then I ended up staying in the US. That was an amazing experience because I had a chance to see all over the United States. When we drove down on a bus, we took a Greyhound bus at the time from Canada to Brooklyn, and then from Brooklyn to Florida, and then I ended up staying in Florida with family and friends. So yeah, that was my entry to the US.
That is dope. Speaking about and you started with the entry, and I'm hearing you say you said vacation, and then you're even thinking okay, y'all, we're gonna have to understand English. What was your role at the time in the family? How old were you? 14. Got you. So, and it sounds like you were at least taking a little bit of ownership of you guys' acclimation into the States.
I've always been like that my whole life, so it kind of come to, I guess, part of my character and personality when I'm always trying to figure out how can we do better, right? So I guess my role in the family at the time is how do we advance further? It still is today, right? So it's how do we always advance further? And to me, for us to advance further, we all have to learn how to speak the language.
Gotcha.
Because then that's our biggest barrier, right? And that's the biggest barrier that stops a lot of immigrants when they come to the States. They could be super talented, but they let that barrier stop them from the greatness. And I didn't want that for us. So I was fortunate to learn English in 3 months, and my sisters did about a couple months as well. So
how did you coordinate that? Because you're coming into a country where systems are different, right? Things are operating way just different than I'm sure that they were in Haiti. Were you a big orchestrator of your family learning English, or how did that come about?
No, so it happens very organically actually, and I went over a couple steps because what happened first is we came to the States, We flew to Canada, spent time, flew back, spent time with family. Then we drove to Florida. All of us didn't stay at the same time in Florida, right? Some of us, I stayed, and then my two sisters and my parent left. Okay. And then the next years, my two sisters came back and then stayed. So during that 1 year period, I spent it with family and friends. And what happened there was, okay, how do I learn English, right? One of the easiest way that I've learned English, and if anybody's listening is like, okay, I have family that doesn't speak English, I want them to learn, I watch cartoons. That's how I learned English. I watch cartoons, I had the subtitles, so everything that they say, I'm repeating it. And then I interact with kids, right? Because I had one of my little cousins that live here in Miami, and I interact with kids. Kids will teach you everything. They'll be honest with you, they'll tell you exactly what to say, or if you're saying something wrong, and you gotta be willing to learn. Then the other piece of that is I didn't just stay in my community. I wanted to get out of my community. That's the biggest challenges with a lot of people that came from that country. They like to stay in that community, stay in that comfort level. I didn't want to be comfortable. I wanted to be uncomfortable, because I said, hey, if I want to learn this, not only I have to speak to people, but I have to learn from people that actually speak the language.
Right.
So I was in school, so I started to hang out, not with my fellow Haitian peers, but with peers that are Americans, just so I can learn how to speak English better. And in 3 months, I started getting it. You know, I wasn't perfect, I still have an accent, but over time and continuously speaking and practicing, that helped me a whole lot.
Yeah. You speak about, like, you know, being able to get out of your circle. And I think that that's one of those keys to success that a lot of people have struggled with learning even in their 20s and 30s. And here you are in your teens with this mindset, like, hey, let me get out of my community to learn English, like one of the first building blocks. I'm thinking of, like, how you were growing up. With that mindset, did you ever stand out in any way, like among your family, among your culture? Like,
always.
Really? What was that like?
Because I also have a big imagination. I'm like a super visionary. So growing up, even in Haiti, I used to, because I draw, I paint, I do a lot of art stuff on my spare times. So I was drawing and painting. I always creating stories. I'm always like, you know, always come up with the ideas. My siblings are great at that too, but that was one of my core skill set. I'm always, I don't know, thinking in like my own little world. So in my way, that helps me a lot, because then I get to eliminate any negative thoughts, right? Because I'm always in my positive mindset. So I kind of grew up that way.
That's amazing. Did you ever like experience opposition among people who were just like, no, let's just do it how we do it? Like you say, like a lot of times when immigrants come to the culture, they figure out what's the way, like what's the American dream, and then we do it. And then a lot of times I know people embody the let's lay low, let's not cause too much trouble. How did that, like, did you ever experience that opposition?
Yeah, of course. I went to both, because you remember, like, not only when you learn English is, okay, how do I not just stand out, but integrate with the overall culture, right? How do I Americanize myself, but not too Americanize and lose my culture, right? So I've always end up in that opposition sometimes, where I'm like, oh, this is how we should do it. No, you should do it this way. So what happened there for me is sometimes I'm like, okay, let me step back and learn, because I don't know, right? If I don't know, I know I don't know, I'm willing to learn. Or sometimes I know something is not right, and then I'll state, I'm like, I don't think we should do it this way. And I'll voice my opinion. That's one thing I try my best to do with my family and outside my family. Hey, here's what I think about this. Here's how I think we should do it. And also my parents play a major role. Like my mother, she's always, since I was a kid, she always say, what are your thoughts on this?
Really?
Yes. You know, like how a lot of mothers were like, oh, go sit down, you're a kid, you don't know what you're talking about.
Absolutely.
She would ask me, what are your thoughts? And I would tell her.
Shout out to Mom.
Yeah.
It sounds like that's just because getting to know you and how calm you are, but also like the vibrations that I get, which like you're not afraid to like come up with like new ideas and try things, but also being encouraged to do that at a very young age. Like Mom, shout out, you know what I mean? Like, so when it came to, you said that, you were arts, super creative, and now I'm looking at you, the LinkedIn guy. How do we make the connection from like creative soul, which you probably could have been, let's say, I don't know, like super
artist, right?
Right.
Yeah.
To being the LinkedIn guy.
So I'll fast forward the story, right? So came here, live in different part of the country. Went to high school, had my first job in telemarketing, where I had a chance to learn how to sell. So I'm 16 years old, doing cold calls, getting on the phone, 700 calls a day. And if you don't make a sale that day, you can potentially get fired. So it's a lot of pressure, but it's also allowed me to think fast on my feet, and then I'm able to use my creativity. So I became one of the top salesperson in that company. I got promoted to a senior sales rep. So I use my creativity, not just in art, but also in communication, right? In coming up with ideas to help people. So I was selling at the time when I was 16, voice over IP for Comcast. So
voice over IP.
Yeah.
That's like when you call AT&T and that's the person?
Exactly.
Okay.
So back in the days, back in like 2003, 2002, voice over IP was a big deal and then you have digital cable and internet services. So what we used to do in the telemarketing company, we used to cold call people and ask them if they want to buy our Comcast services. And a lot of people would hang up the phone on you. So you had to be creative to get them on the phone, and you had to be creative enough to convince them to buy. Right.
I cannot stand when you start with like any type of pitch. I'm like, I don't have time for this energy.
So that's why you wouldn't do it that way. Although they give you a script, they still give you that balance where you can be as creative as you want. Well, I'll call, I say, hey, what's going on today? Do you have a couple seconds to chat? And I'll lead the conversation with questions. So that skill set has helped me a whole lot throughout the year. And fast forward to that, I graduated, went to college, went to the first HBCU. Shout out to Cheney University. And
where's Cheney University?
It's right outside Philadelphia in PA. It's the first black college in America.
But what made you choose an HBCU?
Wow. I love your question. This is good. So when I was in high school, in addition to being super creative, I happened to be great in academia. So I had a 4.0 GPA, and the idea of going to college wasn't even in my mind. But I went to a career fair, college fair in a school with a couple of my friends. They're like, yeah, let's check it out. I'm like, okay. And this lady just came to me and said, hey, fill this out. I'm like, okay. So I fill it out, and that was a lady at Cheney University at the time. And I gave it to her. She looked at it. She's like, you got all A's? I'm like, yeah. She's like, okay, cool. She took the application. I completely forgot about it. And then a couple weeks later, I got a letter in the mail said that I got accepted to Cheney University and I got a full scholarship. And I was like, is this real? So I didn't believe that was real. I was grateful for it at the time, but I'm like, is this even real? Then I actually took a trip to the school to see if the school really exists and if these people are actually real, and did I really get the scholarship?
We got to dig into that. We got to, because you're thinking it's not real. Why? Because like people don't get like
No, I'm thinking it's not real because one, I never heard nobody ever got a full ride to school before, right? And two, I've never heard of that school before, right? So these two things didn't match. I'm coming up from a background where I'm living with family and friends, and going to school for me was just, okay, go to school, get good grades, and then I'll figure out the rest later. It wasn't go to school, get good grades, go to college, and trying to figure it out. So when I got into that room and I'm like, wait, is this actually real? They're gonna really give me a full scholarship to come here? And when I got to the school, I loved it. I was like, wow, all these amazing black people from all over. This is amazing. So I was so amazed by that. And I was like, yes, let's do it. So I just decided to go to that school.
I'm always like, I think that inside, I would say it's maybe like I admire people who went to HBCUs because as an African American, we like you said, get the grades, go to school. I went to a PWI and I figured it out from there. What I also understand is like a lot of immigrants will go to Florida, they'll end up at a PWI, and their heritage and their culture doesn't necessarily get solidified, or in a way that they can actually express it. Like they might, of course, have like deep roots. but they're not able to express it. Where was your identity around like being a black man or being a Haitian man at the time?
So, wow, that's a good question. Back then, it was a lot of struggle, right? Because once I learned English and like throughout high school, I was working, I had a job, but I wanted to be more Americanized than being Haitian.
Got it.
Right? Because I wanted to be more accepted by my peers. One thing I did, I never tell anybody this, but because I was, great in academia, I used to help my fellow peers with their homework, and that was my side hustle. So they're paying me $40 and I write the paper. I won't get them a A, I'll get them like a B, because I said if you get an A, the professor's gonna say you didn't do it. So, and they're like, hi, I got you. So they'll go along with it, and so I was making extra money on the side in addition to working while I was in school. So I always wanted to be accepted by my peers at the time. And so I had to, make the money so I can buy the nice clothes so then I can come to school. Although I was still a geek, right? Because I'm always geeky about stuff. But I wanted to be the good-looking, cool geek. Not just the geek that wear the horrible clothes. So what happened, though, is from high school to college, I started to change, right? I started to becoming more aware of myself. Right? And then I started to become more aware of my roots. And I started to see, well, I don't want to lose my Haitian side. And when I got to an HBCU, I was seeing the diversity in the Black community, right? I was seeing some of my peers that love what they do, that, they're in college, but they're also Jamaican and they're also Caribbean. I'm like, I'm Haitian. So I started to embrace my roots even more. Right? So now I was sharing with everyone, hey, I'm not just, back then people used to call me, I didn't even let people call me by my real name. I used to have them call me by my middle name.
What's your middle name?
Jeff, right? When I got to college, becoming more accepting my roots, then a friend of mine said, what's your first name? I'm like, oh, it's Julbert. I said, why don't you tell people that's your name? I'm like, I don't know. So I started realizing more. It was like a full self-discovery. When I joined the fraternity, right? And they're like, dude, you got to tell people your real name. So all that, it's a self-discovery mindset-wise, but also now slowly moving myself from being accepted, being like, oh, I need to be like these guys because that's what I want to be perceived as, to more of, I want to become more of myself.
Yes. And it sounds like being in that environment, they are pouring into who you are. So it's less of trying to be and more of them saying, hey, you need to be you.
Exactly.
That's so important. Like, I think that as a person, as people, as humans, it's valuable wherever you get it from for people to pour into you and allow you to just say, oh, it's okay to be me. It's okay to be me.
Exactly.
And then also you were at this place where you would have preferred to be more Americanized because I'm sure that's where you thought it would take to be like successful. Yeah. But to hear like people champion like the Julbert side of you, right?
Yeah.
That's dope.
It was. And the beauty about it, because I was in a school where I was grateful to have a full ride, I was around other people that had full rides.
Yes, other smart Black people.
Yes, and those peers also became champions. And some of my peers and I end up starting a business in the school. Because at the time, our mindset wasn't like, we were like, oh, okay, we don't want to be broke college students. We should start a business. And I'm like, we also want to meet a lot of girls. And so I'm like, let's start a photography business. That was before social media, before Facebook got popular, before selfies, right? And my friend were like, yes, let's do it. So we took our refund checks, because even though we had a full ride, we had refund checks. Instead of buy the next pair of Jordans, we invested and started a business. We bought equipment. We started a photography business. My role at the time was the sales guy. Okay. So I wanted to meet all the girls. So I'll go to any girl that I thought was cute, like, hey, listen, my name is Julbert. Oh, how you doing? We started a photography business. We would love to take a few shots of you that you can use for your portfolio. And that's how we started getting our first clients.
Oh, you cannot make this up. That is amazing. Not to mention, fast forward, you went into a sales role. So you got your start really early.
Oh, yeah.
You guys started a photography business.
Yeah.
And I was going to ask you, like, you're in school, so on the side you're a photographer. But what did you get your full ride, and what major did you choose in school?
So I got my full ride just to go to the school for 4 years. I got a business major.
Got it.
Now, I'll give you a quick story on that. As an immigrant, when I told my parents, hey, I'm going to college, they were so so excited for me. There were 3 routes. Either you become a doctor, an engineer, or a lawyer, right? So when I first started, I told everyone I'm going to become a doctor because that was the plan, the vision. But when I got there, I'm like, I don't want to be a doctor. I'm like, I want to do business because I started to get more involved with the company, and I'm like, screw biology, let me get into business. And then when I shared that with my parents, they weren't too happy about it. They're like, what do you mean? You see your dad is in business in Haiti. Why do you want to do that? You should be a doctor. That's what you wanted to do. I'm like, well, you're not paying for it. So I'm going to choose to be, go in business. So I went for the business degree, and I was running this business part-time. I was also, I'm part of a fraternity. I have all these things going on, and I was blessed to have amazing people around me that helped me do it.
Yeah. People oftentimes say, college is a waste of time, and on one end, you have to argue with your parents on what major you want, right?
Yeah.
And on the other hand, you have these people who are like, college degrees aren't worth nothing. And here you are in the middle. You have a photography business, and you're in.
So here's the thing, right? I think depends on what you want to do. If you already know what you want to do and you say, hey, I want to be an entrepreneur, and you already have the relationships, then I don't think college is necessary at this time that we're in right now. But back then it was, because with college, I was able to build the relationships. With college, I was able to travel the world because I was one of the first few students that got a chance to travel in over 10 countries. So with college, I was able to start building the right relationship in my community, right? So these friends are still friends today, so that's what I got out of college. It wasn't really the learning piece, because honestly, I've learned more in the past few years investing in myself as an entrepreneur and taking courses, YouTube universities, getting mentors, than I've learned in college in terms of subject matter. But in terms of relationship building, those basics relationship building and being independent of yourself, I've learned that in college. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So I would sometimes tell people, you don't need to get an MBA. That was one thing I don't think it's worthwhile for me to have done.
Did you get your MBA?
Yeah, I did.
You did, okay.
Right? So I don't think you need it. If you want to go in business, go in business. Don't delay it, because you're going to learn more in that journey in business than you would by just being in the books. Unless you want a high-paying job. If you want a high-paying job, then go to college, get the good grades, and work for 40 years.
So to take a bit of a pit stop, because before I got my MSW, I was thinking about the MBA. And the way that I would characterize what you learn is you learn how to be an employee at a big box company. You're talking about spreadsheets of $1 million or whatever, but when you're going into business as an entrepreneur anyway, your first year might not even be $1 million.
No, it's not, but I think the difference is, if you want to work for a big company, that MBA can be heavy, not just what you're learning, but more of the relationships that you're building to get you into these companies.
Again, relationship,
right? But if you I want to start my own business, go and do it. That right now, at the current time that we in, I would 100% say, go and do it. You'll build the right relationship that way. But back then, when I was going through that process, it was important, right? And then when I graduated college, instead of keeping the business going, we didn't have mentors. So we ended up closing it down. Take our money, buy apartments and cars and do all those crazy stuff, and then work in corporate America.
Got it.
So that's how I got in corporate.
I was going to ask you literally, what was your vision when you graduated? So would you say like your vision might have been tapped at this point? You just went to the next?
Yeah, so it was more like by that time, it was more, I'm gonna go whatever traditional route that everybody said was success was like, was that, okay, now you graduated, you need to get a good job, which around that time, it was around the 2008 recession, right? So a lot of things happened. I had several job offers because I've done a lot of internships, literally all over throughout my college years. And what happened there was one of the job I had offer from was AT&T here in Atlanta. That's when I was supposed to come to Atlanta the first time.
Was that as a PMP, business analyst? What was
it? Was through their corporate executive training program.
Got it.
Yeah, so I was supposed to be one of the people accepted there. Then before we graduated and the market tumbled, they pulled the offer. They're like, we can't accept anybody right now. Good luck to you. And to me, it's like, oh, okay, I did something great. Now, a crazy situation that happened is when I graduated, to starting that second business, what really pushed me to start that business, because my mentor was telling me for about a year, you need to do something with this. And I was like, yeah, but I'll use it for this. Not really seeing the opportunity. Was I started a consulting gig after I graduated for an event company in the city of New York. The reason that they hired me because on my resume, they saw I did something with LinkedIn. So they're like, hey, maybe you can help us build a plan for LinkedIn because that's something we want to focus on. So at the time, they're like, all right. I'm like, yeah, sure. They're like, we'll give you 40 grand. That's your salary to work with us. And then go ahead and help us. So I helped them build a plan. And I saw in less than a month, they took that plan, they implemented, their sales team generated over $300,000 in business for them. The light bulb went on. I'm like, there may be something here that I have not considered. And then after that, they got rid of me.
Why?
It was, to me, they said, well, we don't really need, your services anymore. It wasn't really explained at the time. And when I got that pink slip or whatever you call it nowadays, I was so fired off, and I was like, I helped this company do this in this amount of time, and they're just gonna get rid of me as a consultant. And I'm like, okay. I called my friend, that woman I told you about, and I was like, I am so pissed. You know that? Screw this. I'm starting my own business again. Boom. That's when the idea came. I had $300 in my account at the time, right? Because they didn't even pay me for the consulting gig yet. And I called my mentor, who's also an attorney, and I'm like, I need your help to build this company and create this company. He's like, yeah, come in my office. Came by. He was like, that's going to cost you $300. I took out my card. I just gave it to him. No money left.
Literally tapped.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, now I really have to make this work. So it's so much to the story, but I'll give you kind of like the finite details. So first thing that I started doing, I went back on LinkedIn, started looking for customers. And then I'm like, well, if I'm going to be doing a LinkedIn business, I need to educate people on this because I don't think a lot of people know. That's when my skill set from the network marketing come in. So what I did is I built a list, and a friend of mine gave me another list of people that I should reach out to. I reached out to them. I set up a webinar. I charged $30 for the webinar. And I blasted out. I had 5 people that purchased. I was like, okay, I got 5 people that purchased something. Yeah. So I had the webinar, I presented, people like it, and then I had some follow-up sales calls, and then and that turned into one client that paid me $1,000. So I'm like, okay, there's something there.
$1,000 to do the same thing that you did for the company, or the same thing you did for that first client?
The same thing I did for that company.
Got you.
Right, because that's my only success story there. I didn't have anything else. So I'm like, okay, I started working with them. Then the next thing happened is I'm like, okay, well, how do I build this out? Because I had no idea. So then I started looking, I'm like, okay, are there any other people that are LinkedIn expert? Let me find more who these people are. So I scouted LinkedIn. That was 2013. Back then, there was about 500 LinkedIn trainers around the world. So I scouted them around, and I started identifying who do I connect with the most. And I found 3 people. One was in the US, one was in Australia, and one was in UK. So I got into all their lists and I started learning from all three. And then from learning from all three, I started applying what I learned to help me, right? I still wasn't full-time in the business yet. I didn't get full-time until 2014. At the end of the 2013, I realized, wait a second, I made 15 grand. That's $5,000 every month. Then I think back, wait a second, in enterprise, you know, that's like area manager salary.
Because remember, 60,000 in 3 years.
Guess what happened there? Another light bulb went on. So at the same time, I was doing this, but I still had side stuff that I was doing. Then something came to me in December 2013. I'm like, you know what? If I really want to do this, I got to burn the boat. I got to really focus on this. I really got to go all in with this. I got to stop everything else that I'm doing and then go all in. At the time, I had a very supportive girlfriend who's now my wife. She was super supportive. Everything I was doing, she said, go for it. So when I got home, I told her, hey, I'm going to go into this full time. And she said, I got you. I was like, all right, bet. So I stopped everything else and said 2014, I'm going to go in full time. I decided to go in full time. I made 60 grand that year.
Let's go.
Yeah, so that's how it all started, you know.
Burn the boat, $60,000.
Yeah, so it made me build my confidence in myself, right? Also, one thing I realized is I didn't want to stay there. I noticed at that time that I need to find mentors. I need to always be exposed to people. So I started looking for mentors. I started listening to Eric Thomas, Les Brown, going on YouTube University, listening to podcasts. So it was a evolving process for me, you know, where I got a chance to meet a lot of people, listening to them, find the one that I'm connecting with. And if they're able to show me something that they've done that I haven't done before, I was listening.
You speak about mentorship a lot.
Yes.
And the first half of your career, you're kind of navigating on your own. Plus, I know you got wisdom from parents. You got your peers that you're bouncing ideas off of.
Yeah.
Less exposure as like once you finally started to like actively find mentors. And then you do mention mentors a lot from like the network marketing side of things, even when you had your business. But then now in 2022, we know that most mentorships come with a cost, some type of like, and you even mentioned the ETs of the world, right? I would say Napoleon Hill was a mentor.
Yeah.
Can you tell me, like, one, when did you start investing in mentorship, right? And before then and then after then, what would you say, how would you say mentorship has helped
me?
Yeah, develop
Absolutely.
as a person?
So when I actually pay somebody to become my mentor was in 2014. There's an organization called the Alternative Board, and what they do is a peer-to-peer group where people just meet up together, a bunch of different owners, and they talk about their challenges and they help with each other. And the coach of that is kind of help you and guide you, right? So I've joined that organization. I didn't have a lot of money, right? So I made a deal. You know, when you don't have money, you figure out how can you be resourceful and be of value. So I made a deal like, okay, I'll take care of your LinkedIn if I join your mentorship, and can we come up with some type of agreement, right? So he was like, okay, we can do that until you get to this revenue level.
Okay.
Once you get to this revenue level, I need you to start investing this amount. So I'm like, okay.
Deal.
So now what that does for me, it put me around, because my main thing is, okay, how do I make to six figures, right? That's the big thing to everyone. I'm like, okay, how do I get to six figures? So I told him, hey, listen, do you have people that are making over six figures in your program? He was like, yes. I'm like, can I be around them? He was like, yes. So when I joined that group, right, I was paying $250 a month. I started being around people that was doing six figures. And I'm like, okay, I can learn from them. So learning, and not only learning about business, about challenges, but also learning about myself. What do I like? What don't I like? What pissed me off about business? What doesn't? You know, what can I accept? All these different things. Then fast forward 2018, I got another mentor from a podcast I was listening to. And she was talking about systems. So I'm like, oh, I need systems. So I reached out to her and I invested $9,000. And that was a steep investment for me back then. I was like, holy shit, I'm putting $9,000 into this. It better work. Right? You know? So that was the second one. Then I made another investment for $12,000. Then about a year ago, I made an investment for over $100,000 in myself. Right? That's been one of the biggest investment I made so far. Right? And I'm going to keep making bigger ones. And the whole purpose of it, now it's not just about self and business, it's also about the community of the people you're meeting. Because one thing that has helped me a whole lot throughout the years is having the right network. Being around the right people with the right mindset. If somebody's not talking about the positive things or talking about visions and growth, I don't want to be around them. So my goal is always to be around people that has that positive mindset, talking about that growth and really showing me how to do it, and I can bring my resources to help. How can we collaborate? What can we do? That's my mindset now. So yeah.
You mentioned the first time you invested $9,000, you said it better work, right? I get people all the time who ask me about, what did I get out of investing in a community? What did I get out of investing in a workshop? And I oftentimes have, not that I have a hard time, but my answer evolves into, you have to invest the money, you have to know what you're getting out of it.
Yes.
Right? When you were in that mindset, you said it better work, right? How would you characterize what you thought you were going to get out of it
than what I actually get out of it? What I thought I was getting out of it was, okay, I'm going to be around entrepreneurs that's doing at least $500,000 in their business. It could be a year, it could be 5 years, I don't care. I just want them to be doing multiple six figures. And I'll have systems set up in my company, right? That's all I thought I was going to get. What I got out of it was the community, but also it was more personal myself on you can also do over multiple six figures in your business, right? So it's that reassurance, right? Now I'm in a community where, different folks are doing over 7 figures in a day. So the mindset is, okay, I can do 7 figure in a day now. I haven't done it yet, but that's the mindset. You see what I mean?
Yeah. You didn't even go in there thinking, okay, 7K in a day, 7 figures in a day. You're just like, I just want to be around people who make 6 figures.
Yeah. So for me, it's like, I know once you're around the right people, the money's going to come. You just have to, you'll know the right activities. It puts you in a position, just like when I first learned how to speak English, right? I wanted to be great at it and really pronunciate my word properly and become a great speaker. I'm able to do that because I put myself in that environment. So it's always, how do I put myself in an environment where I can do better? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So now it's more like, okay, now I'm going to be in this environment, or I'm in this environment now. I'm around these people. I'm learning from them. I can do the same thing they did. And it's going to keep evolving.
Yeah.
It's not going to be something that where I'm at now, in maybe 2 years, 3 years from now, the vision of myself that I see there, I'm working toward that vision.
Yes. Oh, okay. Now this is what happens when I get super excited about the journey and I still got business questions. And so I want to do both.
Absolutely.
And typically I get back around to it. We'll see. But in the business, I picked up a couple nuances. One nuance is you solve a problem. For the first client, you solved the problem, got her 50 leads.
Yeah.
And then she
50 customers.
50 customers. Yeah. That's different.
That's different.
And she's like, oh, I can't handle it. She had to hire someone, right? Solved her own problem. Then we get 2 years later, you solve the problem of getting $300,000 for that company, and then they end up laying you off or ending the contract.
Yeah.
So the nuance that I'm picking up, as a seasoned of an entrepreneur I am, right? Way different than the corporate mind I had. I realized you solved a problem and then creating another problem.
Yeah, of me not getting cash flow.
Of you not create. But what I'm saying is you solved a problem for the client of getting the 50 customers.
Yeah.
But then what I'm also learning is having a solution to the next level.
Problem. Yeah, exactly.
Solve. So now that you're here, do you have layers of
now it's a little bit different. Now in my business, and the business has evolved over the years, right? We were a point where we're just doing training. We're a point where we're just an agency. Now we have a combination. We have a do-it-yourself program. We have a done-with-you program, and we have a done-for-you program, right? So it's categorized in those three segment. So the do-it-yourself program is super scalable. You buy it, it's an online course, learning management system. We sell it to coaches, consultants, entrepreneurs, but we also sell it to companies where they're licensing it for their team.
Got it.
Right? So that's theirs. That's a do-it-yourself, do it at your own pace, and so forth. The done with you is more of my coaching and consulting. Right, where a client will bring me in. It could be agency owners, it could be, like enterprise clients and so forth. And then I work with them for a period of time, right, where I literally help them fix their problems, but then I will train somebody internally to take it over, right? And then we have the done for you program. This is where I set it up and then I get ongoing recurring revenue. You see what I mean? So three different, I guess you could say three different buckets, three different levels for three different groups of people. So the way I solve it is, okay, you can do it yourself. You pay one time, you have access to it, you run it, and so forth. Or we can coach you and be a consultant, and then guess what happens? Sometimes you'll know what to do, or your team will know what to do, but you can still hire us to do the work. But now you understand what we're gonna be doing.
Yeah. So you solve their problem. Well, you solve their problem, and then even the next one it creates, you have a solution for the next one it creates, and then you have a solution for the next one it creates.
There you go.
I was wondering. I was like, I wonder from a business perspective, like, how did you learn it? It sounds like
sustainable model.
Yeah, and the intuition to like do that.
Yeah.
So remember, I said I always have like two questions.
Yes,
the
absolutely.
other one about the personal development piece. It was visualization, right? We talked about this a little bit before the podcast started, and before I jumped out of corporate, right? So before I jumped out of corporate, I developed a meditation practice. I developed like praying and visualization and things like that, and that's what helped me like make the next step, right? Where do you find peace, or where do you find clarity in like the vision of it all?
So that's a powerful question. I'll kind of give you my routine, and I think that's kind of going to be helpful.
Okay.
So my routine, 99% of the time, because sometimes I don't do it, and I'm being transparent and honest, right, is before I wake up from my sleep, before I get out of bed, I do my prayer. And then after that, I start analyzing my days and analyzing how I'm going to help clients and really trying to clarify my goals and vision for the day, right? Then I get up, I go straight into meditation, right? I meditate. Really there in my meditation is really trying to understand and keep myself calm and create that peace factor for myself. Then after that, depends on the day and what's got going on, I'll go and work out, or I'll do some stretches and so forth. And then I'll prep breakfast for my wife for her to go to work, because she still enjoys what she does. And then I'll take her to work and spend quality time with her while taking her to work, right? So that's kind of like my morning routine. And by the time I get back, I'm listening to the morning meetup, and then I'm starting my day.
Shout out to the morning meetup.
Yeah, so literally that's my day.
Got you. You said that, and I'm glad you were being transparent about it, because sometimes we do our routines, sometimes we do our rituals, and sometimes we don't. What is like moments of clarity look like for you?
Moments of clarity to me is when I not only see where I'm going, right, but I'm able to reverse engineer the steps on how I'm gonna get there. Either another really good book that helped me so much is Who Not How, right? Before I read that book, I always thinking, okay, how am I gonna do this? Now it's more of, who am I gonna hire to help me do this, right? Because there's somebody that's already done it, or either a mentor or maybe a team member or a contractor. Who can I express that vision to that can help me get this piece of it? So when I'm creating clarity, it's okay, I'm gonna be doing X, I wanna get to that level, I wanna make this goal. Okay, for me to get there, what do I need to do? I need to this. Okay, these are the 7 steps. Who can help me take care of step 1? Who can help me take care of step 2? Who can help me take care of step 3, etc. So that's where clarity looked to me. It's really not just the overall vision, because that's one thing to have that clear vision, right? But it's also, let's create the steps on how you're going to get to that. What's going to be your strategy to get to that vision? And my vision evolves. So I had one vision, I've accomplished it, I'm grateful of it. Then I have a second vision, and I have a third vision. And you have vision in the business, you have vision in personal life, you have vision in family. So it's a lot of different visions and then different ways to accomplish that.
Absolutely. Like a whole web. And then there's the actions that we take every single day.
Yeah, the behaviors.
Yeah. I think a lot of a challenge that a lot of people are dealing with right now, if you were to go to any dating site, any blog, it's the challenge of trying to find somebody on this journey with you. And I love the way you depicted your routine and how you do the things that serve you, right? The meditation, finding the peace by yourself, but then you also like make your wife's lunch and then also spend quality time on the way to work. The way you like embody it, it's like dope, right? But we all know it took time and challenges to get you there. What were some of the things that you experienced? Like, what were some of the challenges that you experienced in your process of getting to that place of like spending quality time on a regular day to take your wife to work?
Something I don't tell people all the time, but my wife and I have this conversation all the time. I'm not a very emotional person, right? I'm always thinking. I'm like a thinker and a doer. So to get to that point where now I'm spending more quality time with my wife, that was not easy, right? We dated for a long time before we got married. I'm not always like a commitment type of person as well. So coming up from that and being very closed off when it comes to sharing my emotion, it took a lot of prayer, a lot of work in myself, right? Personal development. And also some different things happened in life that got me to start looking at things differently, death in the family and seeing, hey, this person didn't even get a chance to do half of the things you want to do. Or you're going to waste that time and not really take advantage of the time that you have now.
Right.
So start seeing things differently has helped me to the process.
You said a lot of prayer.
Oh, yeah.
Can I, hopefully you can answer this question, but when you're successful in business, and when I say successful, I think as an entrepreneur, as long as we're still like moving forward, getting sales, like we're pushing
growing
through,
the business,
we can grind. And as a single person, we can grind all day and all night. And then when you consider the fact that you want to be on a journey with someone, you're channeling energy to maintain this relationship. Like I think of Elon Musk, and when he thinks like about like how he doesn't necessarily consider like the women and he focuses on, I'm like, how do you do that? Right? The challenge of thinking of other people. My question is about your prayer.
Yes.
You said that it took a lot of prayer. What were some of the things that you prayed for? Like when you think about like the prayers?
Be more present with my wife at the time. Because one thing with me, like you mentioned, like Elon Musk is very focused. Like I'm the guy that will just close the door and be in there all day, right? From like my day start at 6:30, because I normally wake up around 4:30, 5 o'clock. So my work days start at 6:30 or 7, and I'm there till like 7 or 8 p.m., And one thing I love about my wife is she speaks her mind. She's not holding it back and expect me to figure it out, right? She'll tell me, dude, you spending all this time in there, you forgot I exist? I mean, we're still in a relationship. What's going on? Sometimes I had to apologize, but sometimes also make me realize, hey, what do I want my life to be, right? What do I want? What exactly do I want beside a business? And the fact that I love this woman, I'm committed to this woman, I'm building a life with her, I have to give that time, because I grew up where my dad is an entrepreneur, where he's there for us when we need it, but most of the time we didn't see him because he's always working, right? So how do I create something where I'm not always working? I'm still in the process of that, right? But the prayer come in by asking God for guidance, asking God for help, making me see things I don't see, making me hear things I should hear but I haven't heard, you know? So that's the process. And then finding people that have successful relationship, mentors
Exposures,
again,
yes.
exposure, right? So in our church, you know, like right now in our church, we're going through a marriage course program. But the pastor and his wife, they've been together for more than 25 years. We don't have half of that time, right?
Yes.
That was not part of my plan at all. Not just me, but my friends were like, okay, some of them wanted to get master degrees. Some of them wanted to, you know, I was like, okay, I'm just going to get a good job and, you know, go make some good money and I'll be good. That was the whole vision.
Yeah. You mentioned not having a mentor.
Yes.
In that moment, in hindsight, what is it that you needed, right, to do anything outside of taking the traditional path?
That's a good question. So if for me to take that outside traditional path, I needed to see somebody that was successful in the photography business. If I had met someone that was doing multiple 6 figures, 7 figures, that had the best life, that had what I wanted to see, I would be like, oh, I'm not getting this job. I'm just going to build this business. You know what I mean? And because photography allowed me to use my skill set in sales and creativity. So
really, that's where you wanted to be. You just couldn't see it.
I couldn't see it. And I didn't have that exposure. I needed that exposure. So I ended up taking the traditional path and got into, you know, working with enterprise at the time. The rental car business. When I got there, my vision there was, how did this company get to $9 billion at the time? That's all I wanted to know. I'm like, I'm gonna get this job because they're doing $9 billion renting cars, selling cars. How? So I wanted to understand that. So that's why I got the job.
That automatically puts you in a completely different subset. Like, even though you said you went the traditional route, you know, the mindset of a person that just goes this traditional route is just to get the job, and then you focus on the spreadsheets.
Nah.
You're thinking the whole time, how does this company get to $1 billion?
That was my whole thing. And I remember my first day at the job, because, you know, like, when I got interviewed, it's a pretty strong interview process. I learned a lot from that as well. But when I got the job, one of the things that enterprise at the time pushing was, hey, you know, you have the ability to get promoted, right? The area manager that got interviewed, I love that guy. He was like, oh man, you can get to $60,000 in 3 years. I'm like, oh, 60,000, that's amazing. Oh my God. So I'm like super excited about that. And I'm like, I wonder, how did they do that? So when I got to the job, my first day, right? My area manager introduced me to my branch manager. Said, hey, this is Julbert. He's going to be new here. Oh, great. Here's the car key. Go wash the car in the back. I'm like, wait a second. I got a bachelor degree. Why am I washing cars? Right? So that had a big toll on my mindset there, because I'm like, I saw myself being up there because I got a bachelor degree and I'm all of that. Then when I got to that office, they're like, go wash the car. And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, okay. So I went back there, washed the car, and as I'm washing the car, I'm like, did I make the right decision? You know, why did I do this? Then another voice said in my head, maybe there's something to learn here. So I washed the car, and then I started following them around, and I started learning the process. Then I started learning how to sell, right? Then I started learning service. And I'm like, oh, that's why he told me to go wash the car. It's part of the process. I had to learn the process. So in looking back at it, at that time, I didn't see it. But after spending a couple months working at Enterprise and becoming one of the top sales rep there, I realized it's all start with the process.
Yeah.
That's why there's such a big multi-billion-dollar company to have a very strong process. So when I realized that, I'm like, okay, now how can I move up? So I started thinking, what's the next step?
I'm listening to you, and I'm 100% agreeing with you. But then I'm also thinking, like, how, like, when you, this is how you said it, and this is how I heard it. You know, they toss you the keys, you have to wash the car. and you're like, you know, the Karate Kid basically wax on, like dyeing my hair. But the way that you, in hindsight, you know, internalize it is like I needed to understand the process, right?
Yeah.
So often, I don't know if people around us are actually like Mr. Miyagi. I feel like so often they're just like handing you the keys. This is what you have to do. Where did you first notice? Because you talk about your story as if like you have this one side that's like, dang, did I make the wrong decision?
Yeah.
But then you have this other side that's like, what do I have to learn here?
Exactly.
When did you first notice that's how you think?
That's a good question. I gotta take you a little further up in my story.
Okay.
But I'm taking you toward after Enterprise, started working with another company, got laid off, find myself, you know, my back against the wall and all this craziness happened. Then a couple years ago, about 4 or 5 years ago, I started to really start learning about myself and how I think and my strength, right? So I read this book. It was about 2018, 2019, called The One Thing with Gary Keller.
I love that book.
That book changed my life. Because after I read that book, I started to think differently about everything. And then I started to looking at all my behaviors and my patterns and started to understanding myself, right? In terms of, why do I make this decision? What can I learn from this? And start to really understand my behavioral pattern and my decision pattern. Yeah. So that's when that started.
Then you started, now you're hearing yourself think. Would you say at that point, that's when your decision making started to change? Or were you like aware of it, but still?
I was kind of aware of it, but really starting to immerse into it around like 2018, 2019.
Got it.
When, you know, reading books and learning, like I've always, you know, once I left corporate America, I had several different mentors that helped me, right? That helped with mindsets, heavy mindset. And it's been a self-discovery, and it still is now. Like I haven't mastered myself yet. I don't think none of us have. So it's always a self-discovery. How can I go further? And looking at my thoughts, looking at my actions, what could I have done better? What I've learned from doing this. Okay, now this is done. Was that the right choice, or is there even a right choice? So all these thoughts.
Is there even a right choice? Like to get to a point where you recognize, like, is there even a right choice? I think that takes a lot of anxiety off. What do you think?
It does, and I'll tell you something that helped me a lot through that. Back in the days, there is a program that I went to. I'm trying to remember the name of the program that was recommended by one of my mentors. That program changed my life because it started to make me think differently, right? And started to becoming more self-aware. So not just the book, or it was around the same time, that book and that program, and I started to see things differently. So all the anxiety, all the pressure, you know, it's slowly getting off my back, right? Not saying that I don't have pressure now, but to me now it's a different pressure. It's more something I know it's coming, I'm welcoming it, and I'm like, okay, all right, let's deal with it, you know?
Let's go. Now, this was 3 to 4 years ago, and you've been an entrepreneur for 11 years?
Yeah.
Got you. So you've had your time in corporate, but I'm curious to know, like, what led to your first like intentional exit out into entrepreneurship? So
it wasn't something where I just, I quit this job. It was never something like that. I was very comfortable. After Enterprise, I work in insurance, making really decent money. Single at the time, no kids, no family, nothing. It's more like, I make this amount of money. I'm going to go to New York City and party, and I'll make that same amount of money in 2 weeks. I was more forced out. It was changes within the organization, and I was one of the people that was let go. And when I was let go, I was given a package. I started looking for a job. I'm like, I'm so talented, I'll be fine. It didn't work out that way. I got to a point where I was getting evicted. My car was being repossessed. My credit cards were maxed out. my credit score went from like a 750 to like a 400, right? So it was bad. It was really bad. And my back was against the wall, and I had to make a decision, sink or swim, right? So I was grateful at the time that I decided to start a business in my apartment.
You decided to start a business with a 400 credit score. Your car is repossessed.
Yep.
Your house is about to be repossessed or foreclosed, I suppose.
Evicted. It was an apartment. Yeah.
And you decided to start a business then.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm so full of okay. What was it that said? Because what were you doing between you leaving the job and then starting your business?
So between leaving the job and starting a business, I was looking for a job, right? So I was being interviewed. Gotcha. I went to all the interview process. They were like, "Oh my God, we're gonna hire you! Amazing! The offer letter is coming in a week." A week passed, then I hear an offer letter. I'm like, "Okay, what's going on?" Start calling and follow up. Silent. I'm like, what's going on? So then I did the same thing again. So now it become a pattern. I've been spending the past 6-7 months doing the same thing over and over again and not getting a different result.
Gotcha.
So I had to step back and said, okay, I can either keep doing this and I don't have any money in the bank and I end up with nowhere to live, or I can do something and take control. So at that time, the idea to me was I need to find a way to pay my bills.
Yes. It wasn't like this super passion. It was strategic, honestly.
Yeah,
like, listen, we got
it wasn't no passion at all. It was like, how can I pay my bills? Because they're due by the end of this month.
Yeah. What was the first business that you thought of?
While I was sitting there, I started looking, and I'm like, I can do this, I can do that. Then I'm like, well, what am I really good at? I'm looking at back in my career from college to working at enterprise. Like, I was really good at marketing. I was really good at sales. Well, maybe I can be in marketing. So first thing that came to mind, because I was trained in my last job on how to use LinkedIn as a tool.
Okay.
So I was like, how do I get in front of these people? Because I don't have a network. Who else do I know that has a business big enough that I can help? I didn't. So I went on LinkedIn and I just started researching because I knew how to use the tool. I started looking for business owners, and then I was looking at the business owners. I was looking at their business. I was looking at their website, and I was just analyzing it. I'm like, okay, what can I do here? What can I help this person with? I stumbled across a cleaning business, and I'm like, okay, it's only been in business for a couple of years. The website doesn't look too good. Let me reach out to these people. So I reached out to the owner. And surprisingly, she replied back. She said, yeah, sure, let's talk.
What was your first message out to them?
It was very simple. Hi, my name is Julbert. I'm a marketing consultant. I noticed on your website that some things could be done better. I have a few ideas for you. Would it be okay if we chat? I still remember those. Yeah.
You remember how you mentioned like mentorship before? Where did you get the inkling, like, okay, what to say, what to look for? Because you even said like, who has a business big enough for me to help?
Think about it. When I was at Enterprise, right, I moved up the rank. I became one of the branch managers, and I was working with businesses. So I developed that vernacular of knowing how to speak to body shops, trucking companies, right? How can we position our trucks and lease it to them? So I've developed that skill set. And when I worked at the insurance company, not only I was doing risk management, but I was speaking to agent, right? I was helping agent close deals. I was telling them, hey, here's what I see on their LinkedIn. Here's how you should approach it. And my creativity and being able to think fast on my feet. So all these different skill set over the years has helped me to get to that position.
Got it. Okay, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, so you reach out, first reach out, they're like, yes, I need your help.
Yeah, it wasn't the first reach out. It was, I reached out to a lot of other people.
Right, no, yes, but
right? The first one that said yes, she didn't say yes, she needed my help. She said, yes, I'm open to talk.
Okay.
Because I didn't say, hey, I can help you build your website. I'm going to make you make a lot of sales. I said, I have some ideas. Maybe you want to listen to them. Okay. And we met. We sat down. She came from Philly at the time. I was living in Jersey. We met halfway. We sat down. We chat. And I literally say to her, if I were in your position, here's what I would do. I would do this, 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 and this. And then she said, okay, let's do it. I'm like, okay, how much do you charge? I'm like, $500. That's all I could think of at the time.
You came on the spot.
Yeah, because my whole thing was, I need to pay my bills.
Yeah.
That was my thing. How can I pay my bills? And she said, okay. I was like, great. I didn't think on how I'm going to get paid, nothing. I'm like, okay, I'll send you an agreement. I knew that much. And then we'll figure out the rest. And she sent me the agreement. Then she wrote me a check. Now I got paid. And I was like, oh my God, I got my first check. That changed my life. Because now I didn't have to basically, because I was in that position, I was like, oh my God, I don't have to rely on somebody else to get paid. I can do this myself. But I still had a lot of negative thoughts in my head. Oh, she might take her check back. You might not do a good job. Then I'm like, I got to pay these bills. Whatever it takes, I need to get this done. So I started working with her. I was able to help her get some customers. She got 50 customers from my ideas, which I thought was a blessing from God. I got another one and another one, another one. Now I was able to start paying most of my bills so I can keep the car and keep the apartment, right? Then the next thing happened. I met a girl and met her through networking. I thought I was going on a date, but I don't know, this girl was going to change my life, right? So we met, we sat, we chat, and she's like, yeah, I'm about to travel. I'm also getting into real estate. I'm like, real estate? Tell me more. And we went from being on a date to talking about real estate, right? I'm like, tell me more. She's like, yeah, I met this guy. You can get into real estate and you could take classes and they'll pay for it. I'm like, really? So now I got the consulting business. Then I'm like, oh, maybe I need to get in real estate. So while she's traveling, I met with the guy and got into real estate. So I started taking real estate classes. So when she came back, I'm like, yeah, I'm taking this real estate class. She said, me too. So we became friends. She became one of my best friends from that one idea, right?
Yeah.
And then when I met her, we met someone else in the real estate program that became one of my first mentors. That got me into network marketing. So I was in real estate, network marketing, consulting, and although I was doing all these to make sure I pay my bills, right? Not thinking, hey, I can focus on one thing and shoot it up. I didn't have any mentor.
I was thinking about the one thing. As you're telling me this, one, I'm thinking about her, this woman changing your life, right? And exposing you to all these things. But then I'm also like, okay, he's getting into a lot of stuff. I'm starting to get scared.
No, but that's the thing. Those things all came full circle because that mentor that I met at the real estate class got me into network marketing. That's where I learned how to speak, how to train, how to recruit people, how to motivate people, how to build teams, right? So all this thing they all come back full circle. Yeah. And then I went and get my MBA because I was like, I'm not smart enough as a business owner to really build something. Maybe I need to get an MBA that can help me.
In hindsight, what do you think about that?
It wasn't the best idea. Okay. I could have done it without the MBA. Although I met some great people in the MBA program and it was meant for me to go through that. However, going back, if I had the option to do it again, I probably wouldn't do the MBA.
So in hindsight, what do you think was truly missing, right? Again, kind of circling back to like mentorship. If someone were there to tell you what exactly the pivot or the sauce that you needed, what was it?
Honestly, it was a couple things. One, someone to help me gain confidence in myself that I can do this. I got that from the network marketing mentor because he kept saying, hey, yeah, I see what you're doing, but that LinkedIn thing, that's major. No one is doing this. You need to focus on that, right? So really give me that strength. Second, having the mentorship, right? And because when I joined network marketing, I started meeting entrepreneurs that are Haitian like myself that made millions, right? So I'm like, oh, this is possible. There's more to this, So that exposure, I got that from network marketing first. And that exposure and that personal development, working on myself and mindset, that's where I got that from. Right. So if I had gotten the exposure, the mentorship, and that self-confidence at that stage, I could have easily take my business to a whole new level. I would have been probably way further than I am now.
If it weren't for those 3 years in your MBA?
Just 2 years.
2 years. If it weren't for those 2 years, you think you'd be further?
I think so.
I'm thinking, so, you know, I'm in my last year in my master's, right? And it's oftentimes I have the same thought. Like, you know, even the things that we want to do, create impact, things. And I'm just always thinking, like, I could be out there. I just haven't seen it yet. When you think about the time that you did spend while you were in your MBA, how could you, or how did you capitalize on the time that you were in there?
So one thing, the MBA that I did was an executive program, right? I was the youngest person in there, but I had the opportunity to meet people from all over the world, from a lot of different backgrounds. And I also had a chance to study in China. I did an international study in China. And that helps me understand different cultures and different business model, right? So that's one good thing I got out of it. Beside that, it was a big debt that I had to pay back, right? And I'm still paying back. I'm not fully done yet. But, you know, that's, and then the contacts. I met a lot of people, but honestly, 2 or 3 key people I met in there have been amazing friends, amazing contacts. That kind of helped me expose myself to more.
Gotcha.
So that's what I got the MBA program. Really is the exposure to different culture and then those contacts. But everything I've learned, honestly, I've not used any of them. I think if you're in a program like you are, congrats, because, you know, we both may have different goal at the time, but I think if you're able to build the right relationship. All right, now, how do I capitalize on the MBA now? When I first started a business, that was a big thing for me, right? When I started the business that I have now, I started it after I graduated, and I graduated in May. I started the business in August. Okay. Right? So when I started the business where we solely focused on LinkedIn, at that time, the way I was sharing it was, hey, I'm this guy, I have an MBA, I know business, you know what I mean? So it helps validate me. And it helps in a way because there were certain people in certain age group that did business with me and that took me seriously because they saw those 3 letters, right? So it wasn't, I guess, 100% not worth it. For me, that was, you know, when they saw those 3 letters, they're like, oh, okay, maybe he knows what he's talking about. You know, this young kid that's not even 30 yet. Right? And that also got me into some of the rooms and some of those enterprise clients. That helps in a way because of those 3 letters. They're like, well, he must know something. And once they actually got to know me and see how I can help them and add value, then it made more sense.
I like how you depicted that. And I realized in this moment, like as millennials, we might not value the degree so much. But I'm hearing in execution what it did was allow you to bridge the gap between your age and the people who are seasoned and they have the money to spend on your knowledge.
Exactly.
And if for nothing else, I think for millennials, if we don't feel like tied to the mission or the value or the impact is there, we quit or quit is the worst thing that you could do, right? But I think in hearing what you're saying, the motivation is that it's going to be a gap bridger.
Absolutely.
Right, to get you where you want to go. Because if you don't, you could try to make it with the information and the confidence that you have, right? To still get those relationships, but it bridges the gap between people who are still...
that you got to think about it. There's a lot of different buyers, depends on what you do, right? So if you're in an e-com space where your face is not needed, where your personal brand is not needed, where you can build a business based on your overall brand, you'll be fine. You don't necessarily need that because it's a product you're selling. But if you're selling a service where it's your expertise, you're being seen as a consultant, you know, for someone that has a company doing $80 million a year to listen to you, who is that 25, 26, 27-year-old kid that doesn't really have a big track record, you got to have something that really stand out. in addition to your knowledge.
And that's what you had.
That was the blessing.
I think that's the good part. So you mentioned starting the business in August when you graduated.
Yeah.
What happened between that first client who pays you $500 to like start your second business?
I'll tell you the details. So that first client that paid me $500, it was $500 month 1, $500 month 2, $500 month 3. Then I helped them get 50 customers, and it was too much for them to handle. So they had to hire internally, and then they end up hiring somebody as well to help with marketing. So then my service were no longer needed.
Got you.
Which to me was fine, because I'm like, oh, okay, I helped her get to that level. So I was happy. My goal is not really to keep the client for life. It's more of, let me get them to the next step where they need to be.
Okay, now I'm curious, how does your wife play a part in your vision, like making?
So we have a couple things. One part is, and I told her, like, she's so sweet and so amazing. Not a lot of women can deal with me, because I'm like super type A. I say what's on my mind. I'm focused. I'm not gonna BS anybody. I'm gonna tell you what it is and how it is. So I did that when I first met her. And I tell her, hey, listen, I'm starting this business. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm probably not going to be home 90% of the time. I'm going to be around attractive women. Is that something you can deal with?
But she was supportive even before. You said she was supportive as your girlfriend.
Yeah.
So you told her that part of your vision.
When I first started dating her.
Got it. And she was supportive from the jump.
Exactly. Because I was very upfront with her. I wasn't like that with some of my past relationship. I was just closed off. You know what I mean? And throughout the years, I've learned I need to be more open. I need to be more communicative. So I'm like, let me just state what it is up front and what I'm looking for and what's happening.
Yeah.
And then we went from there.
So now, as you build a vision for your business, but I'm sure you guys are building a business.
Yeah, we have more than one business
together.
Right? We actually have a business together.
Really?
Yeah.
So you guys are planning both family and business moves together.
Yeah.
That's dope.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I think that's one thing for us that's helping us stay together. Is it has to me personally. It has to be more than just that relationship, right? If we weren't building something together, I think it would be hard to have that connection sometimes.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I'm very entrepreneurial, right? So I'm always trying to find ways, we can make money with this, can make money with that. And being able to go to her with an idea and we said, let's build this together, and she's agreeing to it. And, we building that business together, that is exciting to me. Right? It goes beyond just that emotional relationship, that love and so forth. It's more like, how can we build something?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I love it. And because that energy, it's like, as an individual, we automatically have that energy to put into our business. That's our baby.
That's our baby. That's what we want. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And to build that with another person, if that direct connection isn't always there, right? Because we're not like having those romantic conversations.
Yeah.
Then we can both channel our energy into that thing that we're building. That's
like,
fun.
honestly, we needed to do that for us to still stay together.
That's dope.
Because, we had, like any relationship, there's ups and downs and stuff. We had those, and I'm sure there's always challenges and so forth. But in my opinion, if we didn't start something together and decided, hey, let's build something together, and her having that open mind and willing to do that while she still work her job and feel comfortable and said, okay, I'm going to build something with my husband, we probably wouldn't be together.
That's real.
Because now to me, we're able to spend that quality time. We're able to have those conversations, and that get her a peek into my world and also another peek into her world. And what would happen sometimes in the past with other relationships would be in two separate worlds.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, we're together, but we sometimes in two separate worlds, and sometimes that is very challenging because certain things I'm thinking, I can't express it to you because you may not see my perspective on it.
Yeah.
So
that's big.
That's huge. Yeah.
Man, I think we just got some relationship advice and we just stumbled upon a relationship gem.
It's a growth process. I don't know everything. I'm learning as I go. You know, becoming better every day. I'm learning from you. I'm learning from everybody else. I'm always hungry to learn. Like I was coming here, I'm listening to a book while I'm coming here, and I'm about to take a flight later on. I'm going to be listening to another book. My whole thing is, how can I always keep learning and growing and better myself, better my business, better people around me, and change people's lives?
Yeah, I swear I could ask you questions all day. You are pouring so much information out there, and I wish we could keep you forever. But I'm not gonna, and you have to catch your flight later on, so I am being mindful of your time.
Thank you.
I'm thinking about the person who's currently like in their 9 to 5. They're still in that traditional path. And while you spent some time in the traditional path and been out and then went back in, you kind of know of something to like live outside of the tradition.
Absolutely.
Right? So what would you say to that person who can't see it yet?
Exposure. So if one of your goals is, hey, I want to get out that 9 to 5, you know, find someone who's doing something that you want to do. It doesn't necessarily have to be a mentor. You can't, you know, you don't have to go to them, do you want to be my mentor? And just be exposed around that person or those people. Something that really helped me a lot, I did it a couple years ago. I changed who I was seeing in my Instagram feed, right? Like I'm on LinkedIn where I see all business, and LinkedIn is not sexy. But Instagram, a lot of people on there. So I changed who I was seeing on my Instagram feed. I wanted to be surrounded by entrepreneurs. So I start meeting one, I see them on a live with someone else. I got connected with that person, I see them. So when they're tagged other entrepreneurs, I start following them just so I can see what kind of content that they have. Because I wanted to have that positive mindset and feedback, right? And that has helped me a whole lot, and I still do it to these days. So think about, what are you putting and what you're exposing yourself to? Not just the person and their experience, but also your social media. You know, that's huge. Like I know we all love entertainment, that's great, but also what you feed into is what feed into you. So think about that and do an audit of who you're connected with on all your different social platforms. What are they talking about? What are they posting? Is it stuff that can help you, or is it stuff that just negative? Think about that. You know, yeah, entertainment is great, but also think about having a good balance between entertainment and having the right people pouring into you. Like literally, I've learned so much from like David and all these other guys. Neo especially. Neo is mind-blowing to me. But they're always pouring, so I'm learning from them, and then anything I can do to share that knowledge with someone else, I'm able to do that as well.
Yeah.
So think about, just start there. Find somebody that's doing what you want to do, right? If it's entrepreneurship, what kind of business that they're running, understand them, look at their socials, start following them. Don't even reach out to them yet. Just absorb some of their content, and then slowly start building a relationship that's getting you to more exposure to them, so you can understand their business model, understand what they're doing, and now you can have more clarity on your vision.
Yeah.
Then you can reverse engineer it and execute.
That's fire. That is fire. Thank you. I couldn't have put it any better than that. Thank you so much for joining me on the Work and Play podcast. When I tell you I could ask him questions all day, I probably could, but we're not going to. So if there's someone out there who's watching or listening to your journey, they want to get connected either for your services, because you really have a good way of explaining the LinkedIn side of things, or just stay connected to your life and see how you flourish. How can they get connected with you and work with you?
For the LinkedIn piece, connect with me on LinkedIn, Julbert Abraham. You'll find me on there. For our program, we have a special. If they go to abrahamglobal.com/fire, we have discounted for any of your audiences. Wonderful. Where they can learn how to leverage LinkedIn. If they want to pursue and have their own LinkedIn business, I didn't even get into that. Like you can literally have 10, 15 different streams of income just from LinkedIn alone that's generating 6-figure each. People don't know that, right? Just reach out to me. I'll give you the play. I'll give you the play on what to do. But if you want to stay in my personal life, Instagram is a good place to find me. I talk a lot about LinkedIn, but my stories, I'm getting more open. I was suggested I need to share more of my stories on what's going on in my life. So I'm slowly getting there. But yeah, Instagram, LinkedIn is good.
This is a good glimpse. We get the first glimpse, because I would agree. I was on there. I was like, I got so many questions because you don't put a lot out there.
I do.
Tell me one more time. What's the for the discount for
AbrahamGlobal.com/FIRE FIRE.
Love it. You guys know what to do. Until next time, I just want you guys to go be great. Enjoy your days. Until next week. Peace out.
Later.